Hi. Hi there. Thank you for joining us tonight for our safe virtual launch. I'm Alexis Gregory. I'm the playwright and the director of the piece you've just seen. Welcome. Thanks for watching the play, and thanks for joining us for our post-show chat. I'm going to wait just a moment till perhaps some more people have a chance to join us. Maybe they're popping to the loo or something. I don't want to interrupt that, so okay. So if you've just joined us, I'm Alexis Gregory, the playwright of Safe, and I also directed the piece. I'm here at Hackney Empire on the main stage. That's where I am speaking to you now. Hackney Empire is one of our partners on this project who supported us. So thanks to Hackney Empire, thanks to Park Theatre, and thanks to the Arts Council England, who also funded us and making this project possible. I want to just take a moment to let you know that SAFE has been created in association with Hackney Empire Creative Futures, which is an initiative that helps young people get involved in making theatre. And we've partnered with Creative Futures on this. Check them out on the Hackney Empire website or on Instagram at HE Futures. Thank you for watching the play. I hope you enjoyed it. If enjoyed is the right word, I know it deals with some challenging subjects and themes, but we're here to discuss those tonight. So this chat will be available on the website, Hackney Empire website, as will the play itself. So if you enjoyed the play, please tell people about it, tell your friends, share the link. It's free to watch. We made it free so that it's accessible to everybody. Now, in a moment, I'm going to be bringing on the Safe cast, who you've spent the last hour in the company with. I'm sure you'll agree their performances are fantastic. And I will also be bringing on a guest host, Ricky Beadle-Blair, who is joining us to speak to the cast and to speak to me. And if anyone has any questions throughout any of this, you can put the questions on YouTube. Just type them in. We'll do our best. I'm here with Ruben, who's one of the team here. We'll do our best to keep an eye on the questions. You do have to be signed into YouTube to ask a question, though. We'll try and answer some of yours too. After Ricky and the cast and I have had a chat, I'll be joined by Ben Hunt from the BBC. We'll be talking about his work in covering and documenting LGBT lives. And then finally, Tim Sigsworth, the chief executive of AKT, the charity that I developed this play with, will be joining us to talk about the charity's work. So we'll be together for about an hour, all of us. So I'm going to bring on the cast, and then shortly I'll introduce Ricky as well. So in no particular order, please, let's have the cast join us. We have May Kelly, Tafiq Falarin, Mary Malone, Elijah Ferrara, and our singer, Lamont. Are you all there? Well, the cast are, there they are. Well done, everyone. I hope you're all feeling pleased with yourselves. You all delivered fantastic performances, but I'm biased, hence why I'm bringing on a good friend and a collaborator of mine, Ricky Beadle-Blair, theatre maker, artist, producer, writer. Ricky works extensively in theatre, has written 28 plays in the last decade. They've been performed at the Bush, Soho Theatre, Tristan Bates, Contact in Manchester. He's worked on the American feature film Blackbird with Oscar-winning actress Monique. He wrote Stonewall for Killer Films New York, BBC Films, Metrosexuality for Channel 4, Noah's Ark for MTV Logo, as well as Fit, Kickoff and Bashment for his own company, Team Angelica. And Ricky's won several awards, including Sony Award, Los Angeles Outfest Screenwriting and Outstanding Achievements Awards. and is the creative director of the Visionary Youth Project for Young European Filmmakers. Ricky's a committed mentor to many writers, actors, composers, and directors around the world. I'm lucky to be one of those. So Ricky, I'll hand over to you. Please chat to the cast and me and ask us whatever you like.
Hey, I am so stunning right now. You guys are so amazing. I mean, the first question really has to be, was it traumatic to channel those voices and tell those stories? Like Mary, for instance, I don't know how close your story is, but you know, how did it feel to carry that?
It's a joy to tell trans stories from the mouth of a real trans person, and for so many people to hear that, and not something that someone who isn't trans has written about trans people. It was, yeah, a joy to tell Tammy's story. Yeah, and it felt, you know, close to me, and I can feel a lot of things that Tammy went through. But none of that was traumatic. That was all just a joy to share.
Fantastic. And Elijah, did you feel like you had anything in common with your, I mean, we all know that we have, there are as many lives to live as there are LGBTQ plus people out there. Did you find that you had any intersections with your character at all?
Yeah, yeah, I did. I won't go into all of them because
of course.
We could talk for hours. But yeah, of course. And I think I'm not the only trans man that's going to have lots of crossover experiences with Jack. I think which is really wonderful about work like this is actually, you know, lots of people will watch this and have had much of that same experience. A lot of what he experiences is unfortunately not unique to him, and it's not unique to me. And for me, what's really special is in the telling of that, you can build community and bring people together and kind of bring yourself out of this sensation of isolation that can be really easy and quick to kind of slip into. So yeah, absolutely. A short answer, yeah, completely, lots of resonances, which as an actor can be daunting and also really cathartic to work with. So yeah.
I mean, I'm asking this because you all invested so much in the characters, and I'm not saying you're not good actors. You clearly are, but just it's very interesting to see, you know, because it's a big thing telling these stories, and I get moods overtake me when I'm working on a project, you know, and it starts to kind of seep into me. And I know, Alexis, you must have had to do some work to keep the energy positive and to keep everyone feeling, no pun intended, safe in the process. But how was it for you, A, doing that, and B, when you were transcribing this work and then passing it on, how did you keep yourself buoyant?
Yeah, hopefully, I hope I created the right environment for everyone to work their best in. I think every actor really put themselves on the line, and I wanted to create an environment where we could do that, where we could all make mistakes, where we could decide to do something in a particular way in the morning, and then by the afternoon we'll change it and do it a different way. The actors were all so brave and took very specific direction from me, because I kept saying it's a challenging play for the actors, it's a challenging play for the audience, but you know, we all did it together. And I guess in terms of me interviewing the young people, I was kind of able to put my dramatist head on, and obviously there are times when these stories are really affecting, but I just had to kind of get on with the job without wanting to sound too brutal about it, and do what I had to do, and not do it clouded by too much emotion or sentiment.
Just get through it, get it done. Tafiq, your character is very invested not only in his queerness, which is really funny and joyous to see, but also his Africanness. And how was that for you, connecting with that? Are you from an African family or West Indian family, or?
So I'm from a mixed family, so Nigerian and also Jamaican. And there's also English in there as well. So it was great actually really connecting with the character Samuel. Also to dive into that Nigerian part of myself as well, because I predominantly was brought up in Jamaican culture, which I know very well. And there are some crossovers there, particularly with religion. So it was really nice to actually break that down and also look back on my own experiences of coming out and what that was like for me as a young Black boy coming from a small town, not seeing anybody else like me, and kind of really relating with Samuel in the whole concept of like visibility and not really seeing many characters like myself when I was growing up. So really related to him in that way. So it was really nice to just get into a character, very different as far as the culture and Nigerian aspect goes, yeah.
It was so fascinating, the details that went into each character, well, that Alexis drew out of each character. I mean, I've seen the piece before, but you see more time you see it, you know, it just draws you in more and more because they're so open and honest. May, so you're representing the North up there. Are you actually Northern, or are you?
Yeah, Manchester through and through. Through
and through. And did you feel that you were seeing your voice in there, or voices that you recognized in the piece?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, it was amazing to portray Alicia. So yeah, I recognized a lot of those voices.
Yeah, are there, there's still not that many, I mean, obviously there's Queer as Folk, but there's not that many queer female stories yet coming out of the North and Manchester. So
no, definitely not. We've been told to kind of strip our accents back, but now I'm not doing any of that. I'm speaking like I am. So hopefully there'll be some more stories soon.
Oh, for sure. Lamont.
Hello.
That
how are
voice.
you?
How am I? I'm gagging. That's how I am.
I'm glad.
Your voice. I mean, you took on a very famous queer voice. It has been, brought that to the world. And you really made the song your own and really respected the song. It was great hearing you kind of sing licks and runs that were kind of the music, the backing track, as well as the main melody. Just gorgeous. Have you always been singing like that? Have you been singing like that since you were a little child?
Yeah, so I started singing in theatre. So that's kind of how I got my start and really just kind of discovered my interest for not only singing, but performing in general. And then it was through that I thought,
you act
right,
as well?
Yeah, so it's not my leading discipline, but yeah, I do like acting. And so that's why it was so great to see everyone in the play as well, just because just kind of like, I haven't gone to see many theatre pieces. So to not only get to watch it live today, but also to be there behind the scenes and seeing these guys in rehearsals and doing the whole thing, for me, that was like, really like a humbling experience, to be honest.
And do you have music that do you sing covers, or do you write songs? Do you compose?
Yeah, so predominantly I'm an artist, so I am writing a lot, but I don't shy away from singing the occasional cover as well. So when Alexis did get in touch with me to do this part, I was like, really stoked about it. Yeah, so you did mention like how I did like licks and how I kind of made the song my own, and that's something that Alexis did encourage me to do. For me, it was really about respecting the song, particularly because of the cultural impact that it had. I didn't want to, go too left field with making it my own and, embellishments unnecessarily. So I really just tried to, get the message of the song across and embody that, tastefully.
Oh, beautiful. And did you know the song? I mean, you're all babies, so I'm assuming that none of you have ever heard this song before you came here.
You know what? I had heard the song, and I was talking with May, I believe, when we were in rehearsal, about how we had heard the song before, but we didn't realize, like, you know, who the artist was and, you know, the impact that he really had and the rest of it. But no, it was really cool to actually just learn about, like, just that kind of era and the rest of it in the process of learning that, learning, you know, performing the song. So yeah, it was really cool.
I mean, that's a big thing for you, Alexis, kind of bringing history forward for young people to hear it and for older people who may have missed it to hear it and also to relive it, to reclaim it. That seems to be a huge part of your many-pronged mission at the moment. Am I?
Yeah, I like sharing stories and I like sharing real life stories, and everyone has a story. And I guess off the back of what you're saying, and also Lamont, bringing that 80s song in, having a play that's verbatim but with live music, of course with Yrsa's extraordinary poem Mary so beautifully performed. I wanted to, all my work, as you know, Ricky, it brings a little bit of everything in. So we have theatre, poetry, live music in this.
Yeah. I mean, Yrsa's an amazing poet and the amazing work, but also Yrsa didn't she write poetry for Beyonce recently?
Yeah, we watched it together. Black is King.
Black is King, yeah.
Black is King, yeah.
And so, you know, oh, wow. So you really got the big guns together.
Yeah.
This cast, I mean, I really, I salute you. I can't wait to steal all of you to work in my projects. Consider yourself being stalked creatively by me from now on. You all absolutely smashed it. I see we have, the icons are just piling up right now. We have the amazing Ben Hunt in the room too.
Hey, Ricky, how you doing?
Hey, icon, how you doing?
Ricky, you're right. I brought out all the big guns for this one.
Yeah, I am one. So am I handing over to you? Are you coming to take the baton from me?
Yeah, I'm going to have a chat with Ben about his work as well. So I want to thank you, Ricky, for hosting this section, chatting to the cast, chatting to me, and I want to thank the actors for joining us for this post show and congratulate them on their extraordinary work. I'm sure everyone who watched it is feeling the same, but I'm going to chat to Ben, but Elijah, Tafiq, May, Lamont, Mary, Ricky, thank you.
Thank you. You amazing people.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So this is like a virtual chat show. I feel like you've got the sofa behind you, Ben. I don't. I have this empty stage. But yeah, Ben, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's so nice to see the theatre as well. Goodness. Wow.
Yeah, the real theatre is out there, the auditorium, but we're here. I can show you all. Look, you can see a little...
Yeah, go on, talk. What?
You can see this. Look, here we are on the stage. That's the safety curtain behind me.
Yes.
Hackney Empire will come alive again in September when it opens up. But Ben, thank you for joining us. So, just for anyone who's watching at home, Ben is the BBC's first LGBT correspondent, investigating stories regarding sexuality and gender. In July 2020, Ben took the top spot in The Guardian and Diva magazine Pride Power list. And some of the stories that you've covered, Ben, are so extraordinary. Just to give a brief update to anyone who's watching, looking at the UK government's quietly axing LGBT anti-bullying projects in school, exposing Poland's LGBT-free zones, coverage of the electric shock gay conversion therapy, which has been in the news a lot recently, black male victims of sexual abuse being ignored by the government, and also looking at racism within the LGBT scene, LGBT Muslims finding a voice on social media. So really hard-hitting stuff. And I wanted, as well as me being a fan of your work and being so appreciative of what you do for the community with these stories, I wanted to bring you on because, of course, the obvious link is reporting on LGBT lives. How long have you been interested in doing that?
So I kind of fell into journalism. I didn't ever think that I would become a journalist. I didn't think I had the level of privilege that I needed to kind of get to these levels. So it's always very humbling to me that I have become a correspondent for the BBC and I'm kind of out here like a BBC News person. But it means even more to me that I do get to platform LGBT experiences and dig into LGBT stories as well. I've always loved investigations. I've always loved watching like documentaries and things that really dig into the truth and expose stuff. And it is so great that the BBC allows me to just go off with my laptop and my camera and just dig on data and find stuff out and then platform it for international audiences to watch and listen to. So yeah, it's been a long time of being interested in all of this, but yeah, on a daily basis, I am humbled, I'm inspired. It's nuts.
And I know that you're currently working as BBC's West Africa correspondent, but thinking about, say, those LGBTQ plus stories you've covered, do the stories find you? Do you find them, or is it a combination of all of it?
It's a real mix. I'm always quite surprised that people will go through some really horrific stuff and think, I need to tell Ben Hunt and the BBC about this. But it is so humbling to me that they do, because suddenly my inbox is pinging with like all of this trauma and all of this awful stuff that people are going through. But then through actually speaking to them and understanding those experiences, there's always a deeper story or something to investigate that's come off the back of it. So for instance, you mentioned before about the electric shock gay conversion therapy. That was a man who's in his 70s who just messaged me, dropped me an email and just said, like, I think I'm gonna die soon. I'm suicidal and I don't really know what to do. And I was like, oh my gosh, like let's talk about it. Like, what's going on in your life? Like, what's happened? He said, well, it was however many years ago, 50 years ago, that I went to my doctor and said I'm gay, and the doctor said you need to go and you need to go to this University of Birmingham, where they can electric shock you and turn you straight. And it was as a result of that his life basically fell apart. There's all of these, like, it's usually someone reaching out through pain or through trauma, and then eventually we'll kind of get to a deeper rooted topic about, like, what is it that's actually holding you back? Is there something that's gone wrong? Who's wronged you? And then that's how the stories kind of come about. But then the other side of that is some of it's just my own interests. So I did an investigation into LGBT suicides during the first lockdown, and that was showing that actually LGBT charities across the UK had never seen higher levels of LGBT people reaching out who were suicidal as a result of being isolated, not being able to get to reach their communities that they relied on. And that came about as a result of one of my friends who very unfortunately took his life during the first lockdown. So it sometimes it hits home to me that something's going on. I'm like, oh, I should probably look into that. And sometimes it's other people, but I'm very, very blessed, like I said, that people do think of me when they're going through stuff and think, yeah, I want that exposed.
I'm really sorry to hear about your friend and what happened during the lockdown. In a way, Ben, that was one of the reasons I decided to bring this play back, because of the lockdown and the pandemic and all the young people who are forced back into living with their families.
Oh, yes.
And I know that you've also covered that at the end of last year with one of your reports.
Yeah, so actually I did it twice. So there was, one of them was right at the start of lockdown. I think I will, I can take credit for kind of making people sit up and think, okay, like lockdown, yeah, it's cute. We can do banana bread and stuff like that. But actually, I think my report that I did into people isolated with homophobic parents, it really, I've never seen impact like it, from a story that it didn't have data. It didn't really have like any juicy news line. It was just Instagram DMs that people had sent me saying, like, I'm going back to my parents' house. I'm a 30-year-old dancer who's been on a musical theatre tour for like the past however many years. And for the first time, my accommodation's been cancelled and I need to go home to my parents in Newcastle, who I came out to. They didn't like it. I have no other option. I have to go back to them. So just through speaking to some of these young people and putting their views out there, suddenly the UK kind of sat up and was like, oh my goodness, like actually, like, this lockdown could be really negative for LGBT people. And then over the course of last year, that became deeper investigations. One of them was about the trans experience and trans people's own experiences of going into lockdown. And one trans woman messaged me who said that she thinks she's going to die. She thinks she's going to succumb to COVID-19. But if she does, because she's moved back in with her parents, she was scared that her parents would bury her as her birth gender, or the gender sign of birth, but not as the gender she currently identifies with. And that kind of exposed it in the UK, like that's completely legal. If you're not married as a trans person, your next of kin, who can be your parents, if they're not supportive of your gender identity, they literally can bury you as your alternative gender. And so it's through people reaching out that was kind of wild. And then I've got an investigation specifically into youth homelessness, which should be out in probably a couple of weeks now.
Okay.
With that, I've contacted every council across the UK, just to get an understanding of how they actually treat LGBT young people who say that they are homeless. And my gosh, like that is the data that I've collected from that is absolutely mind-boggling.
I'm going to speak to Tim from the AKT later, and I'm sure we'll talk. But I just wondered, I know you and I have talked about that report. You've had that's been on the cards for a little while. What was the most shocking thing that you were surprised about, or that you found out that you didn't expect?
So the most shocking thing that I found out that I'm very much looking forward to exposing is the support or lack of support that central government has given to councils when it comes to LGBT young people who are homeless. You've got councils across the UK who are literally just winging it and hoping for the best and trying to support young people in the best way they can, but they're ultimately failing them. And that's not me saying they're failing them. This is MPs that we've got involved in this, parents, young people themselves who are saying they've been failed by their local councils. And this is in a country which many people would say is at the forefront of LGBT rights in the UK. I mean, I've literally just flown back in from Senegal, where there's 5 years in prison for assumed homosexuality. Not even homosexuality, just assumed. You can report your neighbor, report your homosexual, and you go to prison.
And you've got your a report that's just come out that you've made in Senegal about these young men and HIV transmission rates and how that's all linked to having to be in the closet, I imagine.
Oh goodness. So that was a very difficult report to make. And it was, specifically looking into being HIV positive and hiding, and the need that some people within the African continent, especially within some of these countries where they do not have LGBT rights, they're almost forced to not only hide the fact that they are gay or that they're a man who has sex with men or a woman who has sex with women, but they have to hide their entire health status because they don't want to go to hospitals. One man that I spoke to was forced to have like an anal exam when he literally just went for just like cold and flu tablets. Like he wasn't even going for anything specifically related to sexuality or gender identity. And they made him do an anal exam because they just assumed that he would be gay based on his voice. And as a result of that, he got in trouble with the police and was arrested. So he just went to the doctor and was arrested for being gay as a result of it. So for a lot of people that we spoke to on the ground there, this having like HIV, like the symptoms related to anything to do with like STIs or HIV, for instance, they had to struggle in silence. They couldn't do anything about it because they didn't want to out themselves as being gay, because it's very much seen as a gay disease, even though obviously we know it's not. So yeah, that report was really difficult, and it stemmed from me going and filming at one clinic, which had to remain completely hidden and anonymous. But I filmed with one gay man who's in his 30s, who actually got his diagnosis whilst we were filming. So his diagnosis came back as HIV positive, and I was like, oh my goodness, I've never done anything like it. Like I was just like, how do you even, I was like, stop filming, like we need to just cut the cameras, just take a moment. But he wanted to continue, like he really wanted to expose like what was going on in Senegal, and what had led to him becoming HIV positive, which he says was a failing of the system. So yeah, it was a lot.
So it's really challenging work. And I guess similar to the question Ricky asked me, how do you report on that? How do you do that how do you not get swallowed by it? How do you do it truthfully? How do you get caught up in the moment? How do you manage that?
I mean, manage, that's a good term. I mean, we kind of push on and just hope for the best, don't we? But I'm very lucky in that I have an adoring boyfriend. I have a puppy. I have a family. I'm the only person in my friendship group of my LGBT friends who has supportive parents. And I'm very, very lucky to have them. They're literally in my house on when it wasn't COVID, they'll be here on like a weekly basis, kind of chatting with Tom, my partner, and chatting with my flatmates and stuff. And that means the world to me, because it means that when I've got that safety net, I can kind of go above the parapet and do what I need to do, full well in the knowledge that if I am about to have a breakdown, I can come back home and call anybody that I need to and things will get sorted. I definitely couldn't do this job or anything related to like LGBT trauma if it wasn't for having that safety net, because my goodness, it all hits so deep. It's all personal. Every single story that I do is personal. Like, I know someone who is going through like the struggle of what I'm reporting on. Like, nothing is that like distant, but also a lot of the people that I then report on do become friends, simply on the basis of social media. Like, you stay in constant contact with some of these people, and it's incredible. Like, it's great to be able to see the journeys that they go on. But yeah, it's all deep. It's tough stuff. But it's also great to be able to actually report on that and expose whatever they're going through as well. Yeah.
Well, you've got like an extraordinary reach as well, so you're really getting those stories out there, and people are really sitting up and paying attention. I want to run a couple of statistics by you. These are the ones that we spoke about before, that you shared, and I found them really extraordinarily shocking. And it was another reason that inspired me to bring this play back, as well as looking at LGBT lives over lockdown and living at home and what that can mean. I'm going to read this. It's from your report. So, you had been investigating transphobic hate crimes. Reports have increased by 25% since last year. That's a 2020 study. And they have quadrupled in 5 years. Hate crimes against gay and bi people, reports have increased by 20% since the previous year and trebled since 2014. Interestingly, as you flagged up, the year that same-sex marriage was legalized. And in 2019 to 2020, there were 18,465 hate crimes against the LGBTQ community reported nationwide. Really sobering statistics. The increase is shocking when we think that we're living in a more progressive world. I've got a couple of questions for you about that. Firstly, were you surprised?
Yes. And you know what I was most surprised by was the fact that my numbers were more accurate than the government's. And this is a really good point for anyone that ever says, like, why do you need LGBT specialists? Like, why is that necessary? Because the data that I dug up through contacting every single police force in the country was more accurate than our very own government's data that they then put out a couple of months later, because the government had not only incorrectly recorded some data from certain police forces, they had completely ignored Manchester. So the government's own hate crime data for last year does not include Greater Manchester Police's data. And as we know, Manchester is a huge city. I think it was a third of the hate crimes that my own data found were in Manchester. So the government putting out their statistics and claiming that the numbers aren't as bad as they say, whilst not including Manchester, is just mind-blowing to me. So yes, I was surprised.
Why do you think they didn't include Manchester? To keep the figures down?
Well, I mean, it depends who you ask. Like, some people told me that I wanted to do a follow-up report on it, and then because of COVID, we just didn't get around to it. But yeah, some people said that it was in order to make it look better, as if things were improving. But through speaking to police officers, like on the ground there, they just said, like, they just didn't follow up. Like, they just asked for data, and the data wasn't sent, and nobody asked for it again. Like, anyone that's done like freedom of information requests and spoken to all of these different councils and police forces, you have to hassle them. Like, you have to pick up the phone and literally be calling. But this means something. Like, this is, for me, it's the knowledge that when people are putting on plays, whether organizations are commissioning reports, they need this data. Like, they need somebody who's going to put all of this together and actually say, look, like, year on year, these are the amount of people that are being attacked. These are the amount of people who are being failed by police. So the idea that our own government's official data wouldn't be accurate, to me, I was just absolutely mind-blown when it came down.
Yeah, I'm really shocked. See, one of the other questions I was actually going to ask you is, what do you say to people who say, why do you need an LGBT correspondent in this day and age? But you've almost answered one aspect of it.
More than that, I think it's the point that as an LGBT community, and as within many communities within that one community, I think that there is a real tendency to celebrate like entertainment and arts And I'm all here for it. I'm here for drag queens. I'm here for music. I'm here for theatre, obviously. And I think that's all really important. But where I've always seen my role is kind of maybe like the dark cloud that provides just a bit of reality and a bit of a reality check on the situation.
We need it.
I think it is necessary, because if you don't dig into this data, if you don't expose things, like, you can live in ignorance. And for all of like during the Pride seasons, when I do my reporting, I'll be on like the 6 o'clock news on the BBC, and I'll get emails from people like, oh my goodness, like, why do we need this? Another year of Pride. Like, oh, there's rainbows everywhere. Cafe Nero's got rainbows up. Morrison's got rainbows up. Why do we still need this? And then when I can put out a report saying something like, the government's just axed LGBT anti-bullying funding in schools, and it's leaving students feeling suicidal or whatever else, like, it's a reality check. 18,000 people attacked over the past year because of their sexuality and gender identity. It's a reality check.
No.
So I, as much as I love doing like the entertainment stuff and all of that, all of those kind of things, it is really important to me to kind of just be that, remember, like, everything isn't all rosy and rainbow colored just yet.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's bubbling under, or sometimes it's not as subtly bubbling under. I've got a couple of questions for you before we finish, Ben. Why do you think those statistics increased? I know that's a big question, but how the hell?
I would say it's a number of things. So one of the things that people told me was people are more comfortable now coming forward about the attacks that they're experiencing. With social media, people can find an audience. So whereas before, like, you could be attacked on your street and you would almost be left to struggle with it in silence. Now you can put that on Twitter and say, look, I've just been attacked. Like, someone just heckled me, called me F word whilst I was out and about. And you can be encouraged by other people to go to the police and to get like justice for that, and for them to investigate things. But then I suppose the other thing is that because LGBT lives are becoming more visible than ever before, people are also becoming more comfortable fighting back against it. You're seeing it with anything that I put out on Twitter. My goodness, you can literally just go through my Twitter post and you will just see like the abuse and unnecessary comments that people feel so comfortable sharing, because they see that as LGBT rights and as LGBT lives become more mainstream, they want to fight back. They feel more comfortable pushing back against it. So I would say that that's those have a go people who kind of want to beat individuals and beat like the wokeness or whatever else. It's some of those who are carrying out these attacks. People that ordinarily wouldn't say anything about LGBT people now, who feel that because their rights are being taken away, even though many people would say they're not, they feel like their rights are being taken away. And as a result, they want to fight back. And I would also say that it's a lot of organizations, charities are firefighting. They're trying to help people who are going through these things. AKT, for instance, they're pushing to help people who are calling their helplines and needing this service and this help. And at the same time, like, maybe some organizations set up to deal with some of these things just don't have the capacity to. They're so busy fighting one thing that they don't have time to look at something else. And so that's why, like, I think it is important to have journalists who can dig into this stuff and expose this stuff, because in these times people are really, really struggling, and yeah, it's thin on the ground.
You know, that brings me to my last question, Ben. You know, all right, so these are tough times. What do we do? What do you think the LGBTQ community, what's the couple of things we need to do to think about? Again, it's a big question. I like the big questions. How do we pull through? What do you think is important for us to do?
For me, communication. Like, I'm here. If there's anything that I can do to expose stuff, to help you, to connect you, reach out to me. Like, I pride myself on like the open door policy. I want to kind of break down the walls of what like news actually is. And if I can help, literally let me know. But also, I think it is communicating like what you're going through to whoever. As I said before, my friends have struggled with their mental health to a level where they've actually taken their own lives. And it has really pushed me to be very open with what I'm going through. So yes, I have a therapist. Yes, I have friends that I can reach out to. And I know not a lot of people aren't in that same kind of privileged position to be able to do that. But whoever it is that you can reach out to, like, share what you're going through, put it out on social media, build an audience, just communicate your experiences. And then also, I'd also say just look after yourself, like in whatever way you can. There's been a lot of performative actions that I've seen, especially on social media over the past year, from people that behind closed doors and then reaching out to me and saying how much they're struggling, but they're putting out this brave face on social media. And I think there's this real tendency for LGBT people to always be performing. Like, we always need to be the best at whatever and looking the best and sounding the best and being talented. And I think it is just making sure that you're okay. And putting that above building an audience and being fabulous and celebrated and whatever else. So yeah, communicate and look after yourself.
They are wise words, Ben. Ben, I want to thank you for joining us. It's been such an interesting chat, and to find out how you operate in work. And thank you for everything you do. You know, it's extraordinary, these stories that you've broken and what you're giving voice to. And thank you for supporting this play, for coming on board straight away and saying, yeah, I'm there for the post show. And
definitely. Well done to you. Goodness, forget me. Gosh.
Oh, no, I'm bringing Tim on now. You know,
done to you for actually platforming these experiences in stories. It's so important. And especially for the organizations that have kind of funded this and got behind it, it's genuinely is so humbling to me to see that finally these experiences are being talked about. And especially because of the diversity of voices that you have within this play, to hear like Samuel's character and kind of hearing like the African experience actually be platformed. Right.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you. It was a massive collaborative effort, but thank you so much. And thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Ben, we'll see you soon.
Oh my God, Tim, we have the same. We have exactly the same poster. I love it. That's
same poster. Be nice.
Mine is literally just over there. Wow.
Oh, I feel so left out. Maybe I should. I'm going to make one quickly. I've got some crayons on the side. Ben, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Hi, Tim.
Hi, Lexi. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm blown away. It was like ghosts from the past watching the play. Upsetting but incredible. The actors were fantastic. I mean, just platforming the lives of so many invisible and so ignored young people. Wonderful. Also, just to say, Lamont, the voice, beautiful. And the thing about Small Town Boy is when we were set up 32 years ago, Jimmy Somerville sang that song at a fundraiser for us.
Oh, really? I never knew that.
So it's kind of perfect.
Thank you.
Lamont has a lot of fans. Tim, if anyone at home doesn't know, Tim is the chief executive of AKT. It's the AKT, the Albert Kennedy Trust, that I met all the young people via, whose stories formed this play. The AKT helps and supports young and homeless at-risk LGBT youth. And Tim, I want to thank you for always supporting this play from day one. And when I said I'm bringing it back, you said, great, amazing, the stories are back out there, and you were here for the post show. I really appreciate the support. Thank you. Thank you. Today's quite a big day for the AKT as well, because of the new report that has just come out. Could you please tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. 5 years ago, we did the first national scoping of LGBT youth homelessness. And it's really shocking. That's where we got the quarter of young people facing homelessness identify as LGBT and so many things. And I was hoping that this new report we've done, which samples young people from across the country, would give a more positive view of where we are. But I have to say, we haven't moved on in terms of LGBT youth and their experiences of homelessness. They're still there. Whether it be the fact that 78% of the young people we surveyed had no support from their parents before they became homeless, whether it's about the fact that when they access services, 35% said that they weren't asked about their identities. And then 59% experienced discrimination, multiple discrimination when they access services. And that was just really sad for me. So the one good thing about this report is it brings home the messages again and says we really do need to shift and change in service provision and in planning for services generally. But it just brings us all back to the fact that this problem is not going away. This challenge to young people's lives is greater than ever.
Why do you think it's greater than ever, Tim?
I think there's a lot of things. I think basically it's tough times, and diversity, inclusion and equity fall off people's agendas in these times. I think there are less resources, there's less housing, so LGBT youth are not seen as vulnerable when they become homeless. But I also think it's down to people like Ben Hunt, people who are exposing the problem, and people like yourself with your play, which is phenomenal. It reminds people, oh, that's me, that's my story. There is something out there for me. So we're seeing a great increase in footfall because people see these lives being portrayed, being put on platforms, and I think that is part of the reason people are there and need us.
I think that's what I was trying to do with Safe, was humanize all these stories as well, so that we find out all aspects of their life. In Ben's reports, even though they might be 3.5 minutes long, you get an understanding of the humanity in these stories, and I think that's really important with it all. The report, I mean, some of the statistics as well, I mean, just looking at it today, I only became aware of it this evening. Give me 1 second. 16% of LGBT young people who were happy to answer the question were forced to commit sexual acts against their will by family members before they became homeless. The same number experienced that with a romantic partner. And then 13%, only 13% of LGBTQ plus young people surveyed felt supported by their parents or step-parents. It's interesting, the makeup as well of the service users. Female 53%, male 36%, non-binary 9%, other 2%, and of those figures 27% are trans. And also people of colour 63% across the UK, rising to 77%. That's the amount of service users. As someone who's familiar with the AKT's work, every time I see these figures, they're still so shocking. What can we do, Tim? How can we help? What can people
I think,
at home
first of all,
do?
well, I think first thing I'd like to say is that picture that you've just described through the report is a picture of the service users we see each day. And you've got to remember, young people, the intersectionality means they don't just face one level of discrimination, they're multiply discriminated against. So being Black or trans and being LGBT, you face, and being part of this community, you face so many levels of discrimination when accessing services. I mean, in terms of what people can do, it's not just about giving money. Of course, go to our website, akt.org.uk/donate, support our work, because we've seen 118% increase in young people since the start of lockdown. So you can help us in that way, but also come and volunteer for us, but also be an activist online for us. Get online, follow what we're doing, push those stories out there. Don't just like them, share them, but get involved in the dialogue that's happening. And I think if you're an ally as well, and I hope lots of allies are watching this play, because we were founded by an ally 32 years ago. And the bigger your platform, the more people you can reach for us. I'm talking about people who've got privilege and can go out there and use that privilege to actually shape people's ideas about the LGBT community and change things. I think the final thing to say is, I remember coming out and my mum saying to me, I'll just choose one thing she said to me: you'll die of AIDS, you're worthless, and having to leave home. And the thing about that was, for me, was I was coming out at that time, and what was incredible in the community at that point was everybody came together. It didn't matter who you were within our community, you galvanized your support behind HIV positive people. And I want to see that again around homelessness. I want to see that around transphobia. I want to see that around racism within the LGBTQ community. Let's all get together and galvanize our support with that big, loud voice.
Because we can do amazing things as a community when we do galvanize.
Absolutely. You know, more Bens, more Lexis. They're the sort of people we need. You're in the positions to actually push things forward and make that difference.
I hope the play can open up conversations, remind people about the humanity behind the statistics. and also highlight the work that AKT does. Can you just give us like a little brief understanding for anyone at home who doesn't actually know what kind of services does the AKT provide to young people who come to you in trouble?
Well, we're predominantly working with young people 13 to 25, but mainly 16 to 25, who are homeless or at risk of homelessness, just for being brave enough to come out to their families. And we are there at the beginning. We're a prevention service. So we provide safe homes for young people, whether that's through our Purple Door housing project or through our host families or through third-party accommodation. We'll provide advocacy, we'll provide mentoring, we'll provide other support, and also we'll help you find somewhere independent to live if that's what you need. But it's all done either digitally or face-to-face across the country. And it's such a unique and important service right now as we're seeing young people face some horrific times.
And kind of, you mentioned the pandemic. Of course, I chatted about that a bit with Ben as well. What changes have you seen over the pandemic with the young people coming to you?
I think it's been really shocking. I mentioned that we've seen a 118% increase. We're seeing lots of young people who are feeling very socially isolated. And, so we're picking up lots of young people needing our support across rural communities. We've seen lots of young people in Wales at the moment, which we've not seen before. So it's really bringing out that social isolation young people are facing. I've got big concerns, as Ben talked about, that young people are trapped during lockdown in abusive families. And there's nowhere to run. So there's no sofa surfing with a friend at a friend's house, or there's no being able to go and stay at a really cheap B&B. They're really stuck and really isolated. So there's a lot of that. Mental health of young people. I've never seen so many young people walk through our door with acute mental health needs. The post-trauma of being trapped with families, of being isolated from their community and their friends, not having their networks. It's been really, really quite shocking just how much they've suffered. But also, when they have gone to services, they don't have any accommodation for them. So they're having to choose between we're seeing more rough sleepers than we ever had before. And on top of that, we've got to remember that a lot of our young people, as I said earlier, identify as people of colour and trans. And if you think about the headlines every single day they're seeing, they're not just facing homophobia, biphobia and transphobia. They're seeing racism, they're seeing transphobia, specifically transphobia as well, but they have to process all those attacks on who they are, on their identities. So it's hardly surprising that every young person who walks through our door at the moment has been affected with their mental health. And then finally, the thing that worries me the most at the moment is they're facing joblessness, as many people are. It's harder to get a job if you're young and you haven't got that experience. And also homelessness, because the protections they've had of not being able to be evicted during these times, those protections are going away. So yeah, it's a pretty grim picture. And all I hear from young people is, I can't wait till we're all back together so we can come to AKT and meet as a group.
Right. Well, the young people who I interviewed for this play all of them were the AKT ambassadors. They were all so proud of the charity and they all wanted to give something back. They were all amazing. We spent a weekend together of them, and they couldn't speak highly enough of the charity and how it had turned their life around. I'm obviously very keen on statistics today because I found another one which I thought was really cool. 97% of the AKT service unit users have improved life outcomes after coming to you, which I think it's pretty amazing that you and your team are able to turn that around.
I mean, they are fantastic. And I'm especially proud of our team at the moment because they have had to, in their own homes, go online, support young people, deal with real trauma, and then be expected to just switch off their computer at the end of the day and still sit in that space all on their own, or not with their colleagues, and just absorb all that pain and anguish that they've seen. They're phenomenal, and this is why I'm still here after 13 years. It's fantastic working with resilient, incredible young people, but then with a team that's there for them and does produce phenomenal results for young people.
Yeah, that's a phenomenon.
And I miss all the young people in your play. Those young people, just seeing them again and remembering them, and remembering how you reduced them to tears when they first saw the play. And I was surrounded by some of them. They were just, because it really resonated.
I think we have one of them watching tonight, and we have one other person who I've messaged and told to watch, who will be watching at a later date. And they're all thanked at the end. The initials at the end of SAFE are their initials, because this play wouldn't exist without those 4 young people who shared their stories and just said nothing's off bound. As you can see in the play, they were saying, I'll be honest, I'll tell you everything. So it's thanks to those 4 that we can still carry these conversations on. Tim, I want to thank you for joining us tonight and getting the insight into the AKT. It's an amazing charity. If anyone's watching at home, please look out for it. Look for the AKT website. On Twitter, you'll find the new youth report that's just been published today. There's a wealth of information out there. Please look into it. And Tim, thank you for tonight, and thank you for supporting the play.
And thank you for everything. And it's just fantastic to see it again. Brilliant.
You. Thank you. I'll see you soon, I hope.
Yeah, night.
Bye-bye. So that brings us up to the end of our virtual launch. It's all very 2021, isn't it? If you've watched the play tonight and you've enjoyed the play, or you found it moving or interesting, or it's opened your eyes, please tell people. Share the link. The play is online. It's free to watch for the purpose of as many people seeing it as possible, and for it to be as accessible as possible. Thank you for joining us to watch the play. And if you stayed for the post-show event as well, thank you to all of the actors and Lamont for joining us today. May Kelly, Mary Malone, Tafiq Falarin, Elijah Ferrara, and Lamont. Thank you, Ricky Beadle-Blair, Tim Sigsworth, Ben Hunt. And I want to just say a few more thank yous. Thanks to Hackney Empire for partnering with us on this play, providing us with a brilliant studio to film in, and all the support. Thank you to Ruben, who's also been fantastic, to Park Theatre, to Arts Council, and to everybody who has worked behind the scenes on SAFE. Making theatre is collaborative, making a piece of digital theatre is collaborative, doing all of that in a pandemic is collaborative as well. Every single person who worked on this went above and beyond. So loads of thank yous. The play's online. Please feel free to tell people, and thank you for tuning in, and thank you for joining us tonight. Bye-bye.